Beginning. Good evening and welcome to another episode of the FITT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow. I'm Bobby Kinzer.
I'm Thomas Doty.
We have just been putting this show together to help people and help our folks get their finances in shape. And last week we talked about is the bubble about to burst. We talked about the stock market and people's retirement funds and assets being in the stock market and the worries of what they should do with their money. Now, we have been in the past talking and teaching how to build wealth. Well, tonight we want to talk about how to protect your assets and be able to transfer them to your family. In other words, we talked about creating legacy wealth building for your family. So the title of tonight's show is Everybody Wants to Go to Heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. Estate planning. You're going to die, plan for it.
Yeah, it's really important that you do, because there are some consequences that can make it real difficult on the people that are left, be it your spouse or surviving kids. And this topic is very, very near and dear to Bob and I, because about 4 years ago, we lost a close friend, a guy who went to Penn State with us. Bob was his roommate for a couple of years. I was his roommate for a couple of years, and he suddenly passed away. And we know there are things that he wished he had planned for, wish he had done, but it was such a sudden death, and he never got around to doing it. And that created a considerable burden on his family. He didn't have a will, so he wasn't able to articulate how he wanted his estate to be handled. There were legal issues, massive attorney fees, family disagreements concerning his assets. There was just all kinds of things going on, a host of other issues. And most of these could have been addressed had he properly planned and established an estate plan. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And first things first, Bob, what should people do for this inevitable occurrence?
It's inevitable, right? Taxes and dying. Well, the first thing people need to understand that establishing an estate plan helps you to be able to determine how and where your assets should be distributed. It also allows you to determine how you want your medical decisions to be made. In essence, estate planning consists of a will and testament, a living will, which is a advance directive. It consists of trusts and allows you to be able to determine your final funeral arrangements, how they're going to be made and how they're going to be set. So that's what we want to start talking about tonight. So we want to begin with the steps in creating an estate plan.
Okay, first thing you have to do is create a last will and testament. that basically takes care of how any property must be designated, who is to receive your estate. And in a lot of cases, if you're married or have a spouse and everything is jointly owned, in most jurisdictions, it simply passes to the surviving spouse. Big issues can arise if both of you die at the same time, and that's where it can get a little dicey. And that's why it's very important to have a will. If there isn't a will, state law will determine how your estate will be distributed. And I think that's the last thing you want, because it takes a great deal of time, and it involves attorneys, so it could end up costing you more than it should. Once appointed by the court, the personal representative or executor becomes the legal representative of the state. So you have to make sure your will is prepared by an experienced attorney. You want someone who has done this before, who knows what they're doing, understand your state laws. And that's why I definitely don't recommend, 1-800-MAKE-A-WILL or www.will.com. This is something that there can be dire consequences if it's not done. I shouldn't say dire consequences. There could be bad things that happen if it's not done correctly. So you definitely want to have it done the right way.
Next, you must establish powers of attorney. Part of estate planning is creating a plan for what happens if you become incapacitated or you're no longer able to handle your affairs. Powers of attorney can designate someone to manage your assets, make legal decisions for you while you are living without the necessity of establishing a guardianship. You can direct the person who can act on your behalf immediately or only if you're no longer able to make your decisions. So a power of attorney is a very, very powerful tool, but you must be careful how much power of attorney you give certain individuals. You just can't give it to anybody. You make sure you have to give it to someone you could trust, who you feel their integrity is intact, and they are responsible and reliable. So you just don't give that to anybody. I know you heard a lot of stories about these professional athletes where they give power of attorney to their agents because they don't want to keep writing little teeny checks for $100. So they give them power of attorney for lots of money, and it gets out of hand. So make sure who you give those powers of attorney. There's people that you can really trust and you can rely on.
And one more point to that, if all of your assets are jointly owned, then obviously your wife can access, or I shouldn't say your wife, your spouse can access those accounts. But if you have accounts that are only in your name and you don't have a power of attorney, then your wife will have trouble accessing that information if you become incapacitated. Okay, the next item we're going to talk about is an advance directive or a living will. We talked about a last will and testament. That was item number 1. Item number 3 is an advance directive or a living will. And this document allows you to make your wishes known regarding life-sustaining treatments like CPR or ventilator use, or do you want to be resuscitated if you have a major event. And obviously, you may be unable to make those decisions. So if you have it laid out, number 1, your wishes and wants can be handled the way you want them to be handled. And number 2, it takes a burden off the other people involved in your life for not having to make that decision. You don't want a situation where you got one person saying, do this, another person saying, do that. It's a lot easier if you say, hey, this is what he wants done. This is what we're doing. Life becomes easy. And just like a will, their instructions should be readily available so people can know what needs to happen in those situations. It saves a lot of aggravation.
Next, you must develop beneficiary designations. Now, certain assets are transferred, certain asset transfers are controlled by contract. For example, proceeds from a life insurance, annuity contracts, IRA accounts, and pensions will pass to whomever you have designated as your beneficiary on the forms associated with those contracts. Now, contract assets will normally pass without regard to the content of your will and without that cumbersome probate process. It is important that you coordinate the beneficiary designations in accordance with the provisions in your will so that they work in concert with one another. And beneficiaries is very important because, like I said, it passes through, it doesn't have to go through probate, and that can become very cumbersome and can become expensive. So make sure you make the proper make the designations for your beneficiaries.
Okay, so that's the what. Now we're going to talk about the how. And the first thing you need to do is make a list of everything you own and everything you owe and go over how it's legally titled. You know, whether it's joint, whether it's just you own it, and make a list so you have everything in front of you, then you can decide what to do with it. And just as a side note, get rid of all that junk and stuff that you don't need, that you don't want people to deal with. Your kids' reports cards and the stuff you've carried around for house to house and just keep it in a box. Don't nobody want to be going through that junk once you're not here. So get rid of it.
What's the next one, Dope?
Organize all your documents and files. Make sure somebody can get to them. Make sure they're easy to find so people can figure out exactly how to get to it if something happens to you. Make sure all your financial assets have designated beneficiaries. Make sure it's clear. And in a lot of cases, you may need a contingent beneficiary. And these are things that need to be updated regularly because unfortunately people do die or situations change. So you should have a primary beneficiary, a contingent or secondary beneficiary in case the first person isn't there, and make sure you update it very, very often. Then most importantly, you have to decide if you need a will or a more comprehensive estate plan. A will is a simple situation, but there are instances involved with you can get some tax savings by doing things to a trust. There are other elements that if you speak to someone who knows what they're talking about and go over your particular situation, they can determine whether you need a will or, again, you need something more comprehensive, which would be a trust. A will simply lays out your wishes of what happens after you die. A trust is another method of estate transfer. It's a fiduciary relationship in which you give another party authority to handle your assets for the benefit of a third party, in most cases, your beneficiary. Okay, trust, you don't go through probate. It already has court approval. It's expensive to prepare, but you do, once you execute a trust or once you sign and a trust is in effect, obviously you're still living. And then you can leave yourself as executor and you can still reap the benefits and manage and everything of that sort. But once you die, there's certain things that happen, and a trust can protect some assets that a will cannot necessarily do. Next, you got to account for your family's needs. Ensure that you have enough life insurance if you're not here. Make sure you can cover future expenses. Make sure you got enough to bury yourself and handle that particular cost. And that's such a trying situation. You got to make sure you have cash readily accessible to be able to pay the bills. If necessary, you may name a guardian for your kids. Again, because nobody likes to talk about dying, but you have to prepare for it. And it's a lot less traumatic if only one spouse dies. But if both spouses dies, you have to have things laid out so it can be handled in accordance. You got to look at, every state's different. Every state's estate tax laws are different. Some states have estate taxes or taxes on the estate that's left. Some states have inheritance taxes that the beneficiaries have to pay. So you have to look into that and pretty much decide exactly what it is you need.
So, though, on the subject of, states have estate taxes and inheritance taxes, I just want to clarify to people the differences of estate tax is basically a tax on what you own, the value of what you own. And inheritance is just that. What is the tax on what has been passed to you. Another thing you really need to do is always plan to reassess. And me and Dote always talk about this, reviewing and reassessing your plan, but especially your estate plan, because life changes, situations changes. So revisit your estate plan when your circumstances change, especially for better or worse. This may include a marriage or divorce or the birth of a child or loss of a loved one, or getting a new job or being terminated. This will affect your estate plan. So this is why you must constantly reassess it. Or you need to reassess your estate plan periodically, even if it stays the same. I mean, your situation stays the same, but the laws may change. So you need to keep up on that. So that's why you need to reassess or review it. It'll take some effort to revise your plan, but trust me, it is really, really worth it. And you need to revise. Means you already avoided the biggest estate planning mistake: never drafting a plan at all.
That's for sure. Okay, this is another.
So, Dope.
Yeah.
Now, I want to transition. Now, next, we want to talk about a subject that everybody dreads. Most people hate to talk about it, but the sooner you talk about it and get it established, the better it is. But most people don't do it, though. And that is planning your funeral service.
Yeah, that's a tough one to talk about. It's just kind of a taboo thought, to discuss what you want to happen when you die. But again, if you plan for it, it's really selfish not to, because it makes it a lot easier for the people who are left if you do plan for it and you have everything laid out. And like most things, it's not a cheap situation. I mean, the average funeral cost is about $9,000 for the whole bit, and cost for cremation and a viewing could be almost $7,000. And that's included the cemetery, property, and burial charges. And it's kind of funny. One of the times I went to a funeral, they show you the different prices of the different caskets, and the real cheap ones are black and white, and they look kind of old, and the more expensive ones are in color, and they look vibrant, and they tell you how they're sealed, and they make you think your person is going to be so much better off in this casket versus the low budget one. So if those things are handled before you are in that period of mourning, you're going to make a much better decision than if you wait and try to do it after, when you're so upset. It's just kind of a tough time to make decisions when you're in that state of mourning. So it's one of those things, if you can do beforehand, the people who are left behind will have a much easier time.
And it's such an emotional situation. I mean, and a lot of funeral homes, I'm sorry if some of you funeral directors out there listening, really take advantage of your emotions. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, though. It is a law that a funeral home must itemize and show you every charge that they charge you. But what most of them do, they provide you a package and give you like the total amount, like $15,000, $25,000. But by law, they're required to break it down, every particular item in there. And though, when it comes to the cost, I know people, this is, heart-wrenching to go through. Your loved one just died. But, Costco sells caskets now. Good caskets. Look, I had my friend, they went and purchased it. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name. I'm so sorry. Alejandro. I'll make it that way. He went and purchased his mother's casket. I'm sure it's dope from directly wholesale from the casket makers in California. I'm talking about beautiful casket for $1,500, right? He then came back. They even said they were in California. They said, "Oh, you're African American. Do you need a funeral home, or to have?" And they said, "Yeah." He gave them. They spent $3,000 total. Dope. But be careful, you all, when you go this route, because I was the pallbearer, right? And we took the casket to the cemetery, dope, and we set it down. You know how you sit it on the grave site. And the pastor was at the head, and I was at the foot. And while I was standing there, I looked and I saw it was a tag on the end of the casket. And the casket was great. I mean, it's like any other casket people be paying $15,000, $20,000 for. They paid $1,500. But the only thing is they left the label on it said made in China. So I actually got up there and pulled it off, right? But just wanted to share that little story. All right, let's go down the checklist. Okay, we got a funeral checklist that everybody should actually look at and consider. Before I do that, though, dope. We always like to acknowledge our viewers, right? And we got my good friend Kitty Cheney out there. Look, Kitty put in the box. Costco sell caskets. You right. You right. And I want to say hello to my little brother, Colton Chapman, my good friend, and his brother went to high school with me and junior high school with me for years. Hello, Colton, and the wonderful Modestine Johnson, who's always watching, and Joanne Skinner. So thank y'all for watching, and make sure y'all click on the like button and the heart, and look, put some comments in there, y'all, and that helps us get traction, you all, with Facebook and also YouTube. So we thank you for doing that. So let's go down the checklist real quick. So the first thing you need to do is choose a type of disposition. I'm using funeral director talk. They try to lighten the load. This is just pick what type of daggone how you want to be buried. Do you want a burial or cremation? And though they have these eco, you can choose a green burial too. It's amazing, man. I mean, they got so many things out there. If you got the money, they can charge you. Sure. Next, and then nowadays you can have a cremation. Say you have somebody that passed before you, like your mother or your spouse. They now will create a hole next to that person and bury the urn for that person right next to the person. Now they charge you $500 for that, but it's amazing. So next thing, you need to choose the type of gathering, service, ceremony, or memorial you like to have. What that means is it going to be visitation? Is it going to be a viewing? Is it going to be a wake? Do you want a private viewing? Do you want a public viewing? Now, all of this stuff may sound, very easy and trite, but these are kinds of things, if you plan for them now and ask a person how they want it, you don't have to be trying to make these decisions when you're very emotional. Oh, my God, we got, Barbara Holly. What's up, Barbara? Barbara says, great information. Barbara, glad to be on here. And wishing Wayne so much. We're sending right now healing vibes and positive vibes for Wayne Holly. We love you much. Thanks for watching. So dope. The next thing is you need to choose the options to personalize your event. I mean, these are things that people don't think about, but they try to do all this stuff when it happens and they're emotional and other people saying, I remember, though, true story, when the earthquake happened in DC, right? We had an earthquake, and my friends, cousins were in the funeral home putting on different wigs on their sister who had passed. And they were arguing about which wig looked better. And the earthquake happened, and the casket started doing like this, dope. And they said she was already a mean woman. They thought she was coming up out that. They said they ran out that mall. They told her, put whatever we want on her head. But I'm just saying, the true story, though. I'm not making this up. So if you want to choose your personalized, choose the options you want to personalize your event. That means like where you want to have it. Everybody don't have it in the church. You can have it in the garden. You can have it at a park, and choose who you want to be the speaker, the clergyman, the Paul Burrows, the eulogist, and I'm talking about all the way down to the prayers, the poems, and the songs, you all. Do you want live music or recording music? I mean, this may sound crazy, but if you get this stuff in place, you don't have to worry about it. Now, it sounds spooky, but no, these are things that we should talk about.
That's for sure. Choose your final resting place. Do you want to be buried in a private ceremony, a veteran cemetery, or a private property? You want your ashes scattered somewhere in a sea, in a park, a private property, or in a memorial garden? Keepsake jewelry, such as cremation jewelry. Now, obviously, that's I don't think you want to put anybody in the ground with anything nice, but everybody has
they do though.
Things. I know
people do.
Well, you wonder if it gets down in the ground. I'm not very trusting, so I wonder if it gets there. Something else you might want to think about is organ donation. Do you want to give away any of your organs before you go? That's something that you can decide now, as opposed to someone else having to make a decision for you. Then, of course, you got to choose how you're going to pay for this. If you want a prearranged funeral, get everything paid up for. Again, that takes a burden off the people who are left, and it's one less thing they have to worry about. And you go, you pick your plot, you get everything laid out, write a check, and it's done. And if you're paying for it at the time of need, you might have to ask family members to pay for different parts of the funeral or to contribute. It's a lot easier, again, on the people who are left if you just have everything taken care of beforehand. And finally, you got to choose a way to record your final wishes. Contact a funeral provider to help you create a plan that ensures your wishes will be followed. Okay. Complete a funeral planning guide. They can have a little worksheet for you where you fill out certain things, or you can just share your final wishes with the people who you know are going to be there. But it's always good to have it written because that person may not be there. So it's always good to have it on paper. And finally, you might even want to put it in a memo or voice recording so somebody can just grab it and say, hey, this is what he wants, or she. Let's go through it bit by bit by bit. And we know these things are morbid to talk about, but we are, and everything we talk about when it comes to money, we talk about planning. And if you can save some money by doing it beforehand, you can avoid some tax situations, and you can just make everything easier. It's better to get this done up front, have everything laid out, and that's one less thing you have to worry about. So let's wrap it up, Bob.
Yeah, and Doug, before we wrap it up, I just want to say, I hope y'all understand where we're coming from, because a lot of people, though, when you talked about, like earlier, you said, man, get rid of some of that stuff. Nobody wants it. But you know what? Some of that stuff people want. And if you want them to have it, this is the way that you have control. I don't care if it's an old china closet or your mother's old teacups, right? This is the way that you can have control over who gets what. And it's amazing, though, the things that people fight over. I remember I lived on 14th and Webster Street in Washington, D.C., and we lived with my aunt, my mother, and my siblings. And when she died, she actually willed it to her cousins down in King George, Virginia. Dope. They came up and took coffee tables, china closets, mirrors. I mean, this is stuff I grew up on. They came and took all of it. And my mother's like, take it. And we were shocked. She was just so calm. My sister was diving on top of the coffee table with stuff they're taking out. They were carrying her out on it, though. It was bad. I'm not making this up. Though, but look, I'm sorry. I'm not going to say which sister. I know y'all listening. But I shouldn't have went there. But look, she did hide a mink coat in one of the rings.
Yeah, but Bob, you're saying it, you know, it's true. You don't want people arguing over that stuff. And I haven't done it. That's one of the things I'm going to do because I have 2 sons. So I want to make sure they aren't arguing over who gets what. And they probably won't, because the oldest will probably take everything because that's just how he rolls. But again, you don't want people arguing over that stuff. Everybody's nerves are raw. People are mourning. You're upset. And I'm sure you've all seen this happen. You've all seen funerals or situations where people are arguing over stuff. People are fighting over stuff. People are not sure what should happen. And all that could be alleviated if it's just laid out. People just take the time to plan, write things out, and make it easy for the people that are left.
Hey, Modestine put a comment, this little tip. She said, label everything with the person's name.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. But I do know some of us would take that name off now. I mean, it's amazing people's attitude. I mean, I've seen it so many different ways, man, where people just get crazy, man, and going in. It's like it's a Black Friday or something. You know, they're going in like and taking people's stuff. It is so amazing.
And the other one, Bob, is, they wanted me to have this, you know. And, how do you argue with that? He told me he wanted me to have this.
Right.
Write it out.
Write it out. Oh man! So let me tell you though. Let's bring this home. I want to share this with you all. It's been once again, another great show, Dope. You go first, Dope.
Okay.
You see that?
Yep. Again, if you're dealing with someone reputable, they can help you determine whether you need a will or a trust. At a minimum, you should have a will. At a minimum. You may need a trust, but you should definitely have a will.
You must understand the tax implications. There's estate taxes, there's inheritance taxes, and each state have different laws for the tax laws. So please make sure you understand that so you don't get tripped up and end up with some major tax bills.
Okay, and somebody you care about is not only going to have to deal with your death, but all the business aspects of your death that you don't handle beforehand. Make it easy on them.
And remember, the whole key to this is it will be reassuring that your treasured belongings will be distributed as you choose. That's the key. Just the peace of knowing that, certain people are going to get what you feel and what is more valued to you, and they make sure that they have them. So there's a lot of things we went over, and Dope, you got the last one.
As morbid as it sounds, we debated using this slogan, but it's so true. You are going to die. There's not many things in life I can guarantee, but we're all going to die. You may as well plan for it.
So, Dope, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about estate planners. We talked about trusts. We talked about will and testament. We talked about advance directives, living wills, power of attorneys. We talked about planning your funeral services, all of those things, you all. And just remember, you can go back out and check these out. Oh, okay. We got Robert Rowell. Great and true information. Weddings, family reunions, and funerals can tear a family up. That's true. And like say hello out there to Bonnie, Dodie. And Robert Rowell also says, as a retired financial advisor, what you guys are saying is spot on. Oh, okay. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, glad we hitting the points. Want to shout out to my main man, my golf buddy Wayne Ellis, who's watching. And we hope this information was useful to you all, because our whole thing is knowledge is power. And we want to empower you with the knowledge, because people only know what they know, though. And
Yeah.
that's why we have the FITT Show, financial information for the day and tomorrow. We're on every week. We haven't missed a week, though, maybe one. That was it. But we're on every Thursday at 8 p.m. I'd like to say hello to people out there across the water. I have friends watching from England and Scotland. I'd like to say hello to them, to our folks, some good people out there. And got to say hello to our frat brother, Alpha Phi Alpha frat brother, Charles Clutch McCargo.
Happy birthday, Clutch.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, that's right. Happy birthday, Clutch. So, Dope, any closing remarks?
No, it's next week's topic will definitely be more joyous than this topic. Whatever it is.
I kind of like this topic because, hey, oh, wait a minute. Robert Rowell is a frat.
Oh, no question. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
06 in the house. All right. We gamma new though. But yeah, thank you all. Look, make sure y'all tune in and look, go out there right now, click on the like button as many times as you can, the heart button, so we get traction. Because we want to get this information, you all, to people across this. It doesn't matter if you're in England, Africa, Saudi Arabia, this information applies to all. And that's why we're doing this. There's no cut card. We're not getting anything. We're not selling no products. We just want to push the information. So make sure you tell your folks to come on out and check us out every Thursday, 8 p.m. And you can go out on Facebook Live into the videos archives and see our past videos. We've done stuff on taxes, home ownership, credit, budgeting, spending. Go out there. They're there. You can go out on YouTube and do the same thing under the FITT Show. FITT, capitalized, the FITT Show. Financial information for the day and tomorrow. We look forward to seeing you next week. Y'all have a wonderful day.